interesting to hear about and learn about.
We are going live now.
Yeah, awesome.
Right. Yay.
Finally working. Finally working.
Awesome. Interesting to hear about it.
Yes. Okay, we are live. We are live now.
It's good to be alive.
Well, yes.
It is good to be alive.
We all three are live now, not just one. Okay. Welcome, everyone. This is once again your host, Shailesh from New Zealand World News Positive, with real connections as our topic, with real people and real talk. But today, I don't know how to describe this person who is our guest speaker today. And before I introduce her, before we talk about her life journey, I wanted to tell you one thing which I understand from her profile, her experiences, that I can describe you in one way. The universe throws for the human being, no matter who you are, where you are, what situation you are in, it keeps throwing you so many challenges since you want to understand what life is all about, what is my purpose is all about. And today, I can say one thing, that universe has thrown so many things to this one person, which I find it's very fascinating, but it's also very real. And when we talk about real things, there are lots of sadness, happiness, everything we talk in a human being. But to make that journey, your own journey, is what a human being really is made up of. So today I want to introduce you to our guest speaker, Hannah Bryan, who is from New Zealand, but her journey is so colorful and so much has gone through right from her childhood. So it's not something we talk about the teenage or middle age or anything, but right from her childhood, her mindset, how she changed, or all the challenges that she faced. We are going to discuss all about that. But today she is I can tell you, of all those overcoming, she has been a very successful human being, not just as a professional, but as a human being who is very amazing to help others through her journey and through her real journey that she has experienced, not from somewhere you go to a class and read a book, but no, it is her book. She is the book that we are going to read today. So I'm going to get straight into that. But before that, I would also like to welcome my co-host, Hailey, who is, as always, wonderful to support and to make these interviews more interactive and more benefit for the people to understand and resonate. So I'm going to go back to Hailey once again with these real connections, and then we will get straight into Hannah. So Hailey, welcome. And welcome.
Hi.
Yeah.
What I'm really excited to hear about today is, I mean, we were speaking a little bit earlier, and you and I do have a very similar childhood history and past, which makes me all the more excited to hear about how you have come to the point that you are at now. And more than anything, I come from a background we're relatively ignorant in terms of the practices that you work in now and how you help people in terms of Reiki and not so much breath work. I understand that there is a little bit more understanding in the world around that, but I would love to hear more about how the bridge crosses in terms of spirituality and the science background that you have, and how people who are less aware of that can understand it a little bit more. Like me, I would love to understand a little bit more about that and how it has helped you in your own journey and how you can help others through that too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So welcome to our esteemed guest speaker today, Hannah Bryan. And I would like to once again stress the point that a colorful journey that a human can get and a colorful challenges that human can get. But she has taken everything under her chin, and she has really lived through her life. She's still living through her life by practicing and helping. And she has got multiple professions. So she's a certified life coach, you see. She's a mindset mentor. She's a breathwork facilitator. She's an NLP practitioner. The list goes on. And you don't know where to stop. But that's how our human journey is. She doesn't stop. And this is something that I have been fascinating to interview her, but also uncover more for understanding myself, how one person can live through all of those challenges and yet make her life more beneficial for others. So you name it, all the good things or the bad things people say, or the addictions of alcohol, drug, gangs, whatever, suicide attempt you say, everything she has gone through. So I'm going to uncover all that. I'm not going to talk about all that myself. I'm going to listen from her. So welcome, Hannah, for this beautiful, and thank you so much for sharing with us these experiences of yours, which is absolutely amazing for me also to understand. So I'm going to start with your first, want to ask you, after where you are today, let's go back where you are today, but let's go back to the way you started and how you are uncovered everything and today what you are. So tell us something about the colorful life journey that you had and the challenges you faced, but how positively, more focusing on how you each time make your mindset so much, aligned, calm. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you first and foremost for having me, Shailesh and Hayley, and a beautiful introduction. That's very heartwarming, and I see that, and I really hear that, and that lands with me. So thank you. And look, yeah, I guess when it's your own lived experience, it probably doesn't feel. When I read someone else's journey, I have so much empathy and awe, and wow, how have you been through those things? And then conversely, when it sort of happens to you, because it's through the lens of your own perception, it feels normalized, I suppose. So I often, when these descriptions of my colorful life sort of come out, it doesn't seem that colorful to me. It just seems like it's experiences. But I appreciate that there's definitely some challenges in there. And, I think things started early on in terms of the sexual objectification as a young girl, and being treated inappropriately, and my body being objectified, which is, even with girls and women who haven't been necessarily touched or treated in that way, there is still an inherent sort of objectification of your femininity, and we're here to please and be observed, and beauty in the external presentation. These aesthetics are a part of being a woman, and that feminine. So that was probably my first, I guess, challenge, if you like, or hardship, was the confusion around the connection with myself as a sexual being, as a woman, as a feminine. And I learned that very early on, and this inherent guilt and shame came with that. And so when you're carrying that inherent sort of guilt and shame, and almost an inability to be yourself, because you have this innate, deep-seated belief that you're not lovable, that there's something wrong with you, that you're not worthy. That expresses itself in different ways. And for me, that came out very early on with self-harm, and cutting myself, wanting to hurt myself, and the external scars or cuts felt powerful, felt healing for me. And that was subsequently sort of followed, as I got a little bit older, by an introduction to alcohol and drugs, which very quickly became a numbing out. a feeling of, you know, filling a hole for a little while, but of course we all know that the hole just gets bigger. And those behaviors become really unhealthy and very toxic and take you so much further away from yourself and who and what you really are. Nevertheless, that was my journey and my path, and risky behavior with men in particular. So, you know, I understand now that was a playing out of a pattern, of a belief, a very deep-seated one, that I am here to please men, and you know, and I need to really allow myself to be treated in any way that they wanted to try and get to try and be loved, to try and be, you know, and the real success, I suppose, was being objectified, was being looked at and loved and wanted, and you know, that came in lots of different forms, and unfortunately with lots of unhealthy, toxic people who, you know, didn't treat me very well. So that meant I was around, you know, gangs, violence, you know, very toxic and dysfunctional behaviors, and that culminated in a serious suicide attempt when I was 17. So it was 51 stitches to my wrist, and I was put into a mental health respite center, which was really scary, and I, of course, then didn't have access to any alcohol or drugs, and so that was a real close, I suppose, looking back now, a very traumatic, but conversely a real healing period for me, because it forced me to kind of face myself. And I remember that connection, feeling that connection to myself. I remember quite distinctly looking in a mirror and, you know, kind of being really scared by what looked back, but having a real feeling of a strength that felt bigger than the identity I'd been playing out, that there was an awareness behind that, a consciousness that I would now explain it as, although I wouldn't have said that at the time. I wouldn't have been able to use those words, but basically that awareness, that soul, that consciousness, that wiser being, if you like, who was very much there saying, you know, you're going to be okay. And that I was able to use that as a mindset sort of tool to pull myself out of that. I wanted to be better than that, and I wanted to live. And you know, I've been lucky enough to, I think that there's a common phrase that sort of, when the student's ready, the teacher appears. And there's been these beautiful humans, people in my life, kind of, you know, signposts, if you like, offering me insights into a deeper understanding of our existence, of being human, of what it is to feel these emotions. And so I was lucky enough to have these sort of books when I was very young, these spiritual books, quite esoteric books that opened my mind into a deeper purpose, a deeper meaning. And I had this amazing, so the man who stitched up my wrist was a Chinese doctor, and he kept sort of shaking his head and seemed obviously very upset that I would have done that to myself. And he gave me a little phrase, and he said, I'm just going to give this to you, and I want you to just take this and hold this really close in your heart. It's really simple, but it's pretty much the key to life. And it's so simple. It's only 10 words, and each of those words has no more than 2 letters in it. And he said, even better, it rhymes, so it's really easy to remember. I thought, wow, okay, I'm intrigued. And the phrase was, if it is to be, it is up to me.
Oh, wow.
And it's resonated. In fact, I've ended up getting a tattoo on my other wrist, the one that isn't scarred, with those words, because it's stuck with me my whole life. And I guess the nutshell to that, or my interpretation that I have, is that if we are creators, and if you know, it really is, we are limitless creators, and the world is infinite in its possibilities. And if we want to make a change or overcome something, it starts with us. It starts with thought, intention, and as I say, the sky really truly is the limit. You know, we are creators and manifestors of our own reality. and so that stuck with me. And so the darkness of the challenge, if you like, was also the opportunity to have this brightness of this opportunity of insight and wisdom. So I carried on. I kind of cleaned my act up. I met an older man who was, had gone to a very good school and was ticked all the boxes of being a good provider and someone who could help me become the person that I thought I was supposed to become by being a good woman. So, turning my back on drugs and alcohol and being, a subservient wife and mother. And I went down that path, and I, became this other, reinvented myself as a mother and a wife. And that was, quite healing for me. But I recognize now that I still was expressing the same types of patterns, just in a different way, trying to numb myself through external things, in this case, kids and my husband, and that eventually didn't work anymore. So I reintroduced myself to alcohol, and I became incredibly obsessed with my weight, which had always been there from when I was younger, and unfortunately became extremely unhealthy, and I virtually stopped eating and lost 20 kilos, got down to 42 kilos, which was really, really, my period stopped. I was really unhealthy, and, really broken. But externally living a pretty good life. I had a good job in sales, was making good money. I looked, people often complimented me on how I looked. I was a high functioning alcoholic, so I was able to drink and still get up, go to the gym, carry on as normal. Although my internal world was really, really lost and, very, very sad. Along the way, juxtaposed to this darkness and this a real loss of self, I still had a deep desire to seek the truth. And so that took me along a lot of spiritual journeys, practicing yoga, introducing myself to breathwork, reading a lot of books, looking into Buddhism. We moved to Bangkok in Thailand with my husband's job, and I became really immersed in Eastern philosophy, and again juxtaposed to alongside still being very unhealthy internally and not looking after myself. But the journey brings me back to New Zealand, where we still, being the wife and the mother as the kids got older. Unfortunately, my mum was involved in a very tragic accident where she, through just a simple fall, broke her neck in the highest place you can. And typically people don't survive, but unfortunately she did, and she became locked in her body over a period of 3 years. And I watched her demise, and the darkness and the real, I guess, profound existential questions that you ask yourself when you see someone whose heart's still beating, who's still alive, yet was unable to move, to talk, to eat, to express anything. And it was such a sad, deep and dark experience. It once again offered me an opportunity to really think about the way that I wanted to live my life. And so, looking into my mum's eyes and seeing what I can only explain as someone who was between worlds. She was physically here in this sort of expression, but she was somewhere else. And I can't really articulate that, not that how I knew that, but I just knew, I knew it. And it gave me a zeal for my own life and wanting to, I guess, the idea that nothing's, the one certainty is uncertainty and nobody knows what's around the corner. And I really wanted to set about healing some of this stuff inside myself. And so that, I became deeper immersed in, I trained to become a breathwork facilitator, practiced a lot of breathing techniques to connect me to myself and find those answers within. So there became less of an external journey and more of an internal journey. And Reiki, self-Reiki helped with that too. Just a lot of seeking and internal seeking. Some plant-based ceremonies. So I've done a few sort of ayahuasca ceremonies in a very ritualized context that helped me, again, sort of connect to my essence, the truth. And that culminated in me leaving my marriage in December of 2021. My 22-year relationship, my whole adult life had been spent with this person, and my identity was absolutely entwined. And my mum passing away through a decision of not treating an illness that she had. So watching a body leave the earth, leave, this dimension, if you like, very profound experience. And alongside, I've been able to, I know that my calling is to help others, and that's not because I'm in any way wiser or, some kind of guru. I don't look at it like that at all. I think my help is by being really authentic and very vulnerable. And alongside that, I've been able to open up my creative world as well. So I perform stand-up comedy with a feminist lean, I must say, and improv comedy, and I'm able to help others through coaching, and particularly women, but men too, and hold regular breathwork and sound bath journeys, which is just a beautiful healing. And once again, I find myself on a new dawn of awakening of my connection to it's almost like a full circle of my feminine self. I've been very much in my masculine self, very defensive, very yang, very action oriented, very proud, competitive, all the great things that are, I'm certainly not saying that they're not wonderful attributes, they are, but when you're too out of balance with that. So the dawn of my new experience of my new journey, if you like, is this connection to the divine feminine within, which is softer, and here I am expressing that and getting to talk to wonderful people like yourself.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. It's amazing what, so when I said colorful, it's not about colors. Every color has got a meaning, and every color resonates with humans. But most importantly is, how you uncover the layer of the colors is more important than just the colors. So it's amazing to see that you have achieved, and you have been achieving, and you have been doing. So when I say achievements, it's not, you don't complete anything, but you do keep moving, and you do keep doing things that really, in spite of all the odds and in spite of all the challenges that you have. So I think all the listeners, they can listen and they can understand that you never went back into that mode of one mode, whether it's a suicidal mode, whether it is a mental health mode, or whether it is that. So this is fascinating for me, because you have got so many challenges, and yet you overcome. You read books, you went into this awakening kind of yourself, finding yourself. So my question is very simple here. I want to ask you, like, how did you change your mindset each time? Like, what really triggered that? Did you understood quickly that, oh, this is not me? Once, sometimes you happen something in your life, and then you realize, no, this is not me. I may drink 2 bottles of beer once, or, and then I say, no, I can't drink 2. This is not me. That kind of philosophy. I wanted to ask you, how did you...
Series of epiphanies.
Yeah.
What brought you to each little epiphany?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, Shailesh, thank you very much for helping. Putting it.
Yeah, really good question. And I think, again, the connection to, and I can't quite, it's going to be difficult for me to articulate, and I'll try, because I really love words, and they're super useful, but sometimes I don't quite hit the mark, right? That's that self, that constant self that's been the same self when you look in the mirror when you were 2 or 4 or 14 or 40, and it's ageless. It's the self, it's the real essence, and then there's the thinking self, if you like, the mind, the thoughts, probably one of the first epiphanies for me, and it's really simple, but it's not necessarily easy, is that understanding that your thoughts are just things, and you're not your thoughts. So that thinking self that tells you all these stories and, you know, and creates your reality. The awareness that there was an observer of those thoughts, and that observer being the constant self, the one that you see in the mirror, the one that doesn't change, it doesn't, you know, goes beyond the wrinkles or where you are contextually in your physical expression. And that's a very personal, you know, it's the self when you're quietly reflecting, maybe when you're going to bed at night, or when you're, we all have our different ways, but I think we can all probably know, even if it's not on a conscious level, what I'm saying. And that was one of the first. So I realized the power of being able to rewrite my thoughts and create, because thought is the first. Everything was a thought. You know, everything started with a thought. That's what consciousness is. And so, that was so I thought I can actually probably control this. I can probably do something about this. I just need to rewire my thinking, and literally that started with changing my thoughts. And that was, you know, I've done all sorts of, there's lots of different techniques, whether it's affirmations, journaling, meditation, just taking the time to, just the realization of that I am the observer, I'm not the thoughts. And that detachment is so powerful.
Wow. Is there any kind of practice that you have experimented with or gained some qualifications, and now that you do help people with, is there anything that you find has helped you more than the other, or something that somebody who's going through a similar experience can hold on to and use as a starting point to maybe find their own path into healing, like you're doing now?
Yeah, I think that healing, my tip, there's lots of different methods or channels that will get you to the same place. I don't think there's a better or a worse, right? Some people might use yoga, and, you know, some people use breathwork, or Reiki, or cold therapy, or, you know, prayer, deep meditation, chanting. You know, there's the list goes on and on. And my personal breakthrough, if you like, was breathwork, which I began practicing intensely in Thailand. And breathwork's a broad term, right? Breathwork, I liken to like sports. You know, it's a category that describes football, or, you know, hockey or netball, or all different types of sports. And breathwork's the same. And there's passive breathing. It's really slowing things down, and you know, almost trying to breathe as slowly and quietly as you can, right through that active breath, that conscious connected breathing, that really changes your consciousness, shifts your consciousness, and creates this change in your state quite dramatically. So for me in particular, it was the active breathing, the conscious connected breathing, the resetting of my central nervous system, and the inability to be anywhere else but right with myself. It's you know,
no distractions.
That's it. Yeah. Well, some people get that in downward dog, right? And because there's nowhere else you can be. You are literally facing yourself.
Yeah.
And like I say, some people get that with music, you know, with kirtan, or, you know, chanting, or there's and neither one is it's better or worse, but it's about what works for you, or particular flavor is it's going to connect you with that self, and that feeling of, I guess, the belief of being unworthy and unlovable, and behind that is a real deep-seated fear of being alone. And the reality is, of course, that we are all alone. However, that connection to yourself, be it through breath work, whatever, is so comforting. There's nothing like it, because suddenly that alone is beautiful.
The most special relationship you can ever have, I feel, is with yourself. Absolutely. Once you build that, it's the most romantic, most beautiful, most comforting feeling you can actually achieve. So
100%. And actually my new journey, if you like, the wisdom that's come to me that I want to explore is that Tantra philosophies. And I'm actually just started reading a really good book, Urban Tantra, which is fascinating, but absolutely that relationship with myself and you know, the connection with me as my feminine sexual self as well, which has always been something that's been very shut off. So I guess what I'm saying is I've still got a long way to go, and I'm really excited by that journey. But the epiphany, probably the greatest one in my life, was the connection that actually I'm beyond my thoughts, and there is a deeper, wiser self who will always be there, which is super, super special.
That's beautiful. Is there any little easy breathwork tips that you could give any watchers that they can just do any time of the day, just to start them along their path and get a little bit of a taste, and just recognize the fact that just changing your breathing or taking that moment to connect with yourself can be incredible and helpful, and help them push through anything that comes on in their life?
Absolutely. There's lots of different techniques, but certainly the first technique is awareness of breath. The breathing is automatic. It's one of our, part of our autonomic nervous system. So the things like, blood pressure regulation, our heart beating, our immune system, all those things that happen without our control in an automatic sense, and breath's the same. However, the beauty with breath is that we can also consciously control it and be aware of it. And when just that alone, so just noticing your breath, the awareness, and of course, if we have the yogic breathing is the 3-part breathing, which is your deep in your diaphragm, right to the base of your spine, and opening up your belly. It's actually the one time that women want to push their belly out, because we're so used to sucking it in, right? But pushing your belly up, breathing into the pit of your belly. Imagine if you had a pillow, you're lying on your back, and you had a pillow on your belly, that you're pushing that pillow out, and then in through your ribs, and feeling those expand, all the little muscles in your ribs as you breathe in, and then up through your chest, up right to your throat, and taking that big, deep inhale in, and a passive breath out. And that can be through either your mouth or your nose. But if you can connect to that breath, and certainly a way to try and slow down if the mind is racing and the thoughts are going all over the place, is to have a longer exhale than the inhale. If you just did that, if it was just a 4-second inhale and a 6 or 8 second exhale, that will shift fundamentally your central nervous system and your stress response. It is like a turbocharged shortcut of if you like, tricking your internal world, using your internal pharmacy, which is so expensive to reset yourself, because we just don't breathe properly. So just that awareness, I think, is the first thing, and then taking big, full, deep breaths where we can, even if it's just 5 deep breaths. That practice alone will bring you to yourself, will bring your awareness back into your body, which is so important because we spend so much time in our minds, and it will flood your system with oxygen, which is going to help you calm down.
Yeah, it's a good time to talk about this, actually, because I've spoken to medical professionals, and I've experienced it myself, as well as friends and so forth, who during COVID, when we had to walk around wearing masks, quite often we weren't able to breathe in the way that we normally would. And medical professionals that I've spoken to actually found that their clients had a tendency towards getting more panic attacks simply for the fact that they weren't able to breathe properly. So their breaths were shorter and faster, which was triggering a panic response and an anxiety response, which during COVID, there's already enough anxiety going on. So that can just trigger it and flip it. So I think there is a lot more awareness that is being developed around breathwork and the importance of breathing properly just through COVID alone, and just having to wear these masks so often, and how much it did increase anxiety just on a daily basis. So it's fantastic to hear you talk about this. It's great.
Yeah, and such as I think what's beautiful about it is the simplicity of the practice. Breath is something we do. When people say, "Oh, what's breath work?" We breathe every day, and they're right. We're not necessarily breathing properly or breathing consciously every day.
Yeah.
And so the reason why it's breath work is because it's work, because it requires you to be conscious, and inherently, but for a lot of reasons. One, a basic one, because we're problem solvers, and as human beings, we need to be solving stuff in our minds all the time. Evolutionary wise, we're still thinking we're going to get attacked, or by a saber-toothed tiger, and we have a survivalist mechanism in there, but also social media, the time we spend on screens, the constant competition and comparison, and capitalism, and all of that, the way that we're living at the moment teaches us to be in our heads, and not in our bodies, and not actually dropping into who and where we are. And so something like breath, the fact that you can override an automatic function that affects every single system in your body, your immune, your central nervous system, your endocrine, digestion, you name it, and it's all there at our fingertips. I just find that really beautiful, really beautiful, and very, very powerful.
Great, Hannah. But I wanted to touch, breathworks is one very after. I want to go back to your mindset, because when you said thoughts keep coming and thoughts becoming things. And so breath is a very last aspect of, I personally feel that I wanted to uncover more about your mindset that you changed with thoughts keep coming, and then you kept changing, different things coming. And I personally feel there is a quote, you getting into spiritual and aspects of it and understanding more about self-awareness, we call it. In spiritual, there is always a saying, that many spiritual leaders have said this long time back, that nobody loves anything more than their freedom. And even love is secondary to freedom, because freedom is the highest value. So when you said we come alone and we go alone, we love ourselves more. That is our freedom, basically. So love can be sacrificed for freedom, but freedom cannot be sacrificed for love. That's what one of the quotes of the leaders that has mentioned. But I want to go back to that, how you change your mindset, because everything depends on our mindset, that when universe throws at you lots of things, whether good, whether pleasant, unpleasant, whatever, we switch our mind. And we switch our mind to think, even to have a breathe or breath work, we need to have a mind should tell us, this is what we want to do now. So tell me something about that aspect of your experience, that positive, how you made your everything into positives, or everything you adopted, whether reading books, whether getting into spiritual. So your mind was telling you something, that this is what will work, before you went into that.
Yeah, so a deep, and I'm inclined to agree with you there. I think before you can become conscious, you have to have a decision, if you like, and a conversation with yourself, a mental,
correct,
a mindset shift. And I again was lucky enough to have some amazing sort of, like I say, I've described them as sort of signposts in life. So people that gave me really amazing books. So one was it's a book called Affirmations by a man called Stuart Wilde, and I've still got a copy. It's very bruised and battered, but I was given that when I was younger. When I say younger, about 12 or 13. So I started reading. I've been an avid reader my whole life, and it talked about the power of your internal world shifting. So noticing the thoughts is the first thing. You know, we're more automatic and robotic, and things like more recently learning NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which is a very fascinating, very powerful discipline. That actually most of the stuff we do is in our subconscious mind. Our conscious mind is really only a very, very small part of our existence and what we do. And becoming aware of that, so becoming conscious of your thoughts and reprogramming those. So the first thing is the awareness, and I am going to think differently. So I would visualize this. The stories I would tell myself is things like, you're not good enough, you're not able to do that, you can't do that, you left school early, you've been on drugs, people aren't going to people aren't going to believe you, you're not going to be worthy, all those things. And I would notice them. And I think the first part of the process is noticing, is awareness, because you can't change it if you don't know about it, right? And not judging those thoughts. It's another, because you can get into that loop as well. Oh, I shouldn't be thinking that. That's really bad. It's not about judging. It's about being aware of them. And maybe, people providing me with really powerful metaphors, things like, it's just clouds and like clouds, they're just going to pass. Those thoughts are just going to pass. Just become aware. And the more you become aware, the more powerful your consciousness becomes. More you're able to control and curate your thoughts, and then that builds their new neural pathways. And we now know that the brain is very plastic, and those thoughts can become, create different relationships and neural pathways in your brain, and create a whole new expression of how you live your life. So I now know tricks, things like, if you hear a real negative thought, one that came up for me was I wasn't going to be able to survive on my own. I needed the financial backing of my husband, all these things that I'd internalized. And I can now use kind of sophisticated tools, in the sense I can actually, this is a neuro-linguistic, an NLP tip. You can do things like maybe give that voice a accent. So maybe it's Donald Duck, one of my favorites. Could be Mickey Mouse, could be anything. Even if you turn it down, play with it, and it instantly disempowers it. Instantly you realize, that's just a thought. That's just a thought. And actually, it's a really silly sounding thought now, because I've made it sound like Donald Duck. And so it transmutes that thought. It takes away the potency, and then you're of course able to go on and replace those thoughts and think other things. So we've all got that capability. It's not about it's just practice. It's just practice.
So do you think, like, when you talked about conscious decisions or conscious thoughts, did you think that all your journey before, when you were little and then having those experiences, we were more focused on the subconscious mind than the conscious? And it was quite late that you realized the conscious mind played an important role in your thinking,
definitely.
in your thought process?
Yes, I think, when we're up until about 7, our brain is literally in brainwaves in theta state. So we have this open doors to our subconscious, and our experiences shape. We have no filter, which is beautiful, but also really can be dangerous when you internalize those thoughts. So my subconscious beliefs that I had gathered, from 0 to 7, were driving my behaviors and driving my thoughts. And it wasn't until I was able to understand the power of my conscious mind and influencing my subconscious mind, because of course once you get past sort of 7, you come out of that brainwave state and all the filters are there, and it's actually really hard to access your subconscious mind after that, unless you're really focused and aware. So totally, I think that happens for a lot of us, right? We're in as human beings, we want to be efficient. We want to run efficiently. And so our our brain will do whatever it can to pop things into the automatic subconscious mode and have the, you know, the path of least resistance. And that's a good thing and a bad thing, of course.
But I was fascinated with this, like for choosing consciously 4 different areas, whether you are a research industry or a stand-up comedian or a life coach, you know, and a breathwork practitioner. So it's all aligns different things, but it all what who you are as a being. And that's very important, how you chose this conscious, like what was the positive minds? How did you realize that this is your skill or this is what you wanted to do always?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to help others. I think the questions I asked myself was I don't know whether you've heard of it's a Japanese phrase called ikigai, and it talks about, you know, finding something that you're good at, that you enjoy, that the world needs, and that you can get paid for, energetically rewarded for. And so I really thought about that, and I knew that I wanted to help others. I knew that was my my calling to help and to hold space for others. And so I didn't know quite what that looked like. You know, was that going to be something like maybe I needed to get into mental health, or you know, and I turned around ideas like that, and I realized that I need, what I love about coaching in particular and breathwork is that you're holding space for others to unlock their own potential. It's not that I'm imparting advice, and you know, sometimes that's appropriate. You might share a book that someone should read, or offer them some of your own experience, but typically it's about holding space for that person to help them connect with their wisdom inside themselves, and certainly that's the case with breathwork and coaching. And that was an introspective journey of sort of asking myself, what made me feel good? What gave me purpose? What, you know, if money wasn't an object, what would I want to spend the rest of my life doing? And so I came to that conclusion. And I don't think that's over yet. You know, I think that I'll refine that. My new journey is wanting to write. I want to complete my book. I've just started, and I have a time frame for that. So, and that's also helping others, right? By sharing, by being authentic, by being vulnerable. And so is comedy. Being
Humorous.
It's standing on the stage and sharing your thinking and your perspective and making others laugh is healing. It's all part of the same thing. And being vulnerable, it's incredibly vulnerable standing on a stage and sharing your thoughts in the hope that others find it funny, or, you know, laugh along with you. And leadership. So in the research, we connect the last one there, the leadership journey that I've been on with in the research industry is the same thing. It's helping others. It's by showing my vulnerability and sharing my lived experience to help others thrive and connect. And so, despite them being quite different areas, they're actually all really connected by a common theme.
Particularly comedy, I feel. A lot of the time, I often make a joke about my trauma and so forth, and people think it's a deflection. They think you're avoiding something, or that it's some coping mechanism and you refuse to face it. But it genuinely actually feels like you are putting in positive energy into something negative. It's like you're canceling the negative energy out. I'm not sure if that's how you see it, but I'd be interested to see how you do. It's helped me absolutely, just incredibly. I love it. It's fantastic. It's changed my life.
Oh, that's so cool to hear. Yeah, I think my tragedy and comedy, you know, with the Shakespearean masks, they're two sides of the same coin. And transmuting that, I think for me, being using comedy to tell my story, and some of the stories I tell are quite raw and quite harsh, and but I then own them and I story tell in the way that I want to. So I'm suddenly it's empowering that I'm taking something that was traumatic and sharing that story in my way and making others laugh. And that's empowering. That's alchemizing trauma into something that makes other people feel good. How can you get more powerful than that?
Yeah, it's like turning your thoughts into Mickey Mouse. It takes away the power of it, and it feels like you're taking the power back.
Totally, totally. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
absolutely. I
And
love
then
to hear.
others see you do that, they go, wow, I could probably do that too. There's
Yeah,
things, happened to me that I actually think I could find funny. And that's the beautiful, that's the gold, I think. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, no, you're good. There's a little bit of a lag sometimes as well. So sometimes that crossover will happen. Something I would like to hear a little bit more about is the NLP practitioner work that you do, because it's something that's quite new to me. I don't really understand it too well. And there's probably a few watchers who'd love to hear more about it as well.
Yeah, and this is quite a recent exploration for me. It's interesting. It's presented itself to me in different ways. One of the first ways was listening to Tony Robbins when I was younger, who I still think is an amazing mindset mentor. And, I mean, he's just a force of nature, and he's used NLP and the tips and techniques throughout his life. And it's really probably at the risk of oversimplifying it, NLP is using the understanding of the brain and how we make sense of meaning to your advantage. So, becoming aware of thoughts, being hyper aware of interactions with others. So where people's eyes are, how people interpret information, how we interpret information. I think the stats are, we have something like 2 million pieces of incoming data every minute, and there is no way that we can absorb that, and it's just too much. So we have a filter and a series of filters in our brain that that make sense. And so that's why, when you have just gone out and bought a red Toyota, and then all of a sudden all you see is red Toyotas, they were always there, but your filtering system, your reticular activation system that they call it, is heightened to that. And that is the case with everything. So if we're looking for information to tell us that we're not good at something, or that we've made a mistake, or that we are unworthy or unlovable, that's how we will experience our reality. And NLP, in its very highest level, takes the knowledge that we know about the brain and how we filter, and in particular with words and our particular flavor of experience, if you like, whether we're audio or sight or taste or smell, using the senses, and as a framework for I guess a bunch of tips and tricks that you can use to actually influence not just yourself but also others, and have a greater and deeper understanding of the world and the filters and the lenses that we use. It's fascinating, really fascinating, and very, very powerful. And it also does make you realize that in terms of our brain and our processing, we are extremely automatic and conditioned. And so I do think it ties into consciousness, because it's the same idea of being really consciously aware. It's just using probably a more technical framework, really.
It sounds very similar to, it sounds very similar to the little epiphanies that you've been having, in terms of realizing that your thoughts, they are under your control. And it feels like you've gone a little further into that, and you're helping others with it now too.
Using questions and beliefs and watching people's reactions to understand and get to the nugget of what's driving some of their behaviors, because sometimes they don't consciously know. In fact, often they don't consciously know.
I want to ask you one thing, Hannah. With all these experiences that you had, trauma, which has led behaviors and has made your life a purpose for others to be helped and to connect. So what do you see after today, as of today, what do you see human life journey is all about, when you have experienced so much traumatic, pleasant, unpleasant? But what is human journey then for you, as a life journey that everybody who is listening Like they go different experiences, they have got different pleasant and unpleasant. But then what is life journey as a human? That we have to go through all these and yet take it positively and how live it just the way, accept it. What do you think our human journey is? Because you do spiritual aspects, you do also
Yeah. I think
whatever.
that's a really, yeah, it's a really, really beautiful question, and one that my answer will probably change as I go through life. But right now, I think my expression of when you, the more experiences you have and the opportunity to learn and the exposure to these emotions that are really opportunities to get a greater insight into yourself. There is a depth, a real beauty there, and a depth of wisdom and self-learning and self-discovery and learning about the world. And I think really that really comes down to, what's underpinning all of that is, the beauty of humans is this hope is probably, these things that we do that aren't about our survival, like love. You think about things like an interaction with animals, and you have a dog or a cat, you're looking to, those things are so exquisitely beautiful, and they're part of what makes us human. So if I was going to say, what is life about, for me right now, is about connecting to our humanity, which which of course has struggles and hurt and pain, and absolutely, but also has these really beautiful, exquisite expressions of love. There's nothing better than that. I think that's I'll take it all. So I'll take that rough, I'll take that harshness and that rawness and the sadness, the pain and the fear, because on the other side of that is love, is intimacy, and that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. That's probably where I'm at with my understanding of what life is at the moment.
No, definitely connection, humanity, these are the ones that we thrive for. These are the ones that we always want to connect as a human being. So no, I resonate with that aspect. At any stage of your life, you want to connect, you want to, show the humanity at that human you are, basically, and live up to your natural instincts, no matter how much hurdles we individually face, but we still like to connect with. We don't know who they are, but we still like to connect.
And that's what we're doing that right now, right?
Exactly.
We're connecting. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, that's just
amazing.
Lovely.
It is beautiful. It is beautiful. Yeah, we are now almost coming to the end, Hannah. This is beautiful insights that you are giving, but I'm sure Haley has got a few things that she resonates with when you talked about animals, when you talked about that. This is how we evolve as a human being. So I go to Haley, and Haley might want to ask you a couple of things before we end up. And then I want to give a final message. Haley.
Not so much questions.
I
know that we're coming to the end, but I would love to say how much I appreciate you sharing your journey. In particular, it's resonated with me a lot because there are a lot of similarities, and it gives me a lot of hope and happiness to see where you're at now and to feel somebody who's on a similar journey. And what you said at the end was really, really beautiful. It highlights the beauty that is life, the contrast that we experience. Without it, there wouldn't be beauty. Life would just be flat, So it's to appreciate the pain. It's to not run from it. And another thing that I do really appreciate is the education that you've given me. I know we don't have a lot of time, but it's been really good to bridge the gap just a little bit in terms of someone who's worked in a more scientific background, as well as somebody who's working in a more spiritual dynamic that a lot of us don't yet understand. So it's really nice to see them two come together in a marriage, and will help other people create it'll help them create just a little more understanding in their own heads, and probably a little more curiosity. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And it's been really great.
Yeah, no, definitely. I like to stress one point here to all the listeners who are listening, that, in life, we face lots of challenges. We face circumstances keep changing, and we have to adapt, and we have to be flexible, but we have to also accept just the way who we are. But to understand that, I guess what Hannah has today demonstrated and presented to us, her life journey, not just a life journey, but a learning journey of how she managed to deal with the circumstances that were created, not by her, but by the universe or by the circumstantial whatever. We are just in the middle of this universe journey of life, and we get all these things to face. But we have got the choice to create our own journey. And that's what I could learn, that Hannah has made her life by choosing the right professions that she wants, or even seeking out and becoming more seeker and exploring. And what she mentioned is no matter what age you are in, she has faced from all ages, right from the childhood. And that becomes a very powerful for all the listeners who are listening, that, life can throw at you at anything, anytime, but it's how you deal with it, how you choose and to deal with it is more important. And so, like, choosing her spiritual journey, which is I'm fascinated, I resonate a lot with the spiritual aspects of hers, which is what she started. The Breathworks, again, is an ingredient of who we are as a self-realized person, and acknowledging our own body parts, whether it is your breath, eyes, ears, and listening to yourself, So I think, and then choosing the right profession, I just think that just a colorful, like, you can become comedian, you can become serious, you can become scientist, you can become health, anything you can become you want to. This is what I learned from today, Hannah. And it was a great insights that you gave us. So now I go back to you finally. What is your final message to the audiences who are listening to overcome whatever they are having traumas, little they think it is trauma, or they think we cannot cope? So what would be your message to them?
I think you're stronger than you think, and I don't mean strength in the classic term. I just mean in the typical masculine term, or but strong is awareness and enduring and sitting with it. I think there was a chap called Viktor Frankl who wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning. And if you haven't read it, it's a brilliant read. And he was in the Holocaust and had the most horrific conditions in Auschwitz, real torture, real horror on every level of his physical, spiritual, mental self. And he is, something that's really resonated, and I'd like to share with your listeners, is the, between stimulus, i.e. something that happens to me or anyone, whether that's, pain or someone saying something, doing something, or us feeling something, and response, how we respond, there is a space. And in that space is your power. And that, I think, is a really beautiful, important lesson to remember. No matter how bad it feels, no matter how almost endless the pain feels, and how deep the pain goes, and how hopeless you feel, there is always a power in how you choose to respond, and no one can take that away from you. And that's the strength. And when you realize that and recognize it, there's a connection there to yourself that's unbeatable. And so don't give up. Don't give up. There's power in that gap between stimulus and response.
Beautiful. That's a good thing. that you said, and that's a good message to all the listeners who are listening. So finally, I would like to just end up here that to all the listeners, if you need more information and more questions that you have, please do write to us. Anna, as she has become a coach, as she has also become a breathwork, so definitely she can help you overcome all your trauma, because that has made her behavior, has made her life, and the purpose to help others. So her purpose is to help others connect to the essence of their true nature. So obviously, this is something I leave up to all the audiences at the final message, that please do write, and nothing is non-achievable. Everything is achievable. As we can see, there is a live example here of our guest speaker, Hannah. So once again, great insights, Hannah. Thank you so much for your wonderful insights and sharing your the most invaluable experiences that you have been through and gone through. And what more than, we real humans talking with real connections. So once again, this is positive news. This is once again all real connections with real people. Hannah, thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Any final word you want to say, and then we will end it.
Thank you so much for giving me the space, for seeing me and hearing me, and allowing me to share, what is just my own lived experience. Only one page ahead in the book sometimes, and I just want to say thank you, and thank you for being such beautiful, open humans. Hayley, I'm looking forward to hanging out with you or catching up with you in outside.
I love that. I love it.
I see you, sister. So thank you so much, and take care, everybody, and looking forward to catching up with you again.
Yes, absolutely. Good night, everyone. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Did your mouse come back alive again?
Yeah, my mouse is not working, so technical difficulties.
We did well.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have a lot more time. Otherwise, we could have carried
Had a bit of debrief. Yeah, I've got 6 minutes till my next meeting, but thank you. Thank you. That was amazing.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I will end and then we'll rejoin.
Can we, Shailesh, can you share
I will end here and then we'll join again. Just a minute.
Can you share my details with Hayley? I'd like to hang out. I'd like to connect.
Absolutely.
I love that. I love it. He's already given me your Facebook, so I'll add you as a friend. And
cool. Are you in New Zealand?
Yes, I am. I'm in Wellington.
Oh, cool.
I could travel a little bit though. My time's fairly malleable, so it's not too bad.
Same. I'd love to connect with you. Yeah, I feel really blessed.
Yeah. So I think we have a lot in common.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really rad. Thank you guys so much, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And send me the link when you can, Shailesh.
I will.
Have an awesome evening.
Bye. Take care. Bye.
Oh, sir, it's just us now. Just us and this really active live mouse.
It's still live. It's still live, It's still live. I don't want to. It's going now.